Well, what's up, good people and Eagle fans? Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. You know what's funny is we have been literally dancing around the problem and talking about the problem and why our defense failed the way it did. It's not that, here's the thing, people will say, Dan Quinn, he's a freaking idiot. Damn, he sucks, man. He sucks. Get his stupid ass out of here. Well, I don't know if he's going to be gone or not, if he's going to get one of these jobs that he's interviewing for. He has interviewed for other jobs in the past, and yet he's still here with Dallas, talking about his guys. Here's the thing that's so, it's so obvious, and we literally have talked about it several times. And the reality, this is the whole definition of insanity here. Here is the whole definition of insanity. How the Dallas Cowboys operate and why the defense failed. Okay. Are you ready for this? Okay. Dan Quinn did a masterful job with the defense with what he had to work with. And understand, he's been there for 3 seasons, and what he did with that defense, from where we were with the historically bad defense that gave up more points than any other team that the Dallas Cowboys have ever had, okay? 2020 with Mike Nolan, it was terrible. Now understand, Dan Quinn took that defense and made them one of the better defenses in football, basically with getting one more blue chipper piece. One piece, Micah Parsons. Micah. Everybody else that was put on that defense, with the exception of Mozzie Smith. Mozzie was a later round draft pick. Sam Williams was a 2nd round pick, but he hasn't really been the impact that you want. Neither is Mozzie. Everything else that's on that defense was what was already here, or low round journeyman players, or people that were already here. Here's the thing, the difference between the Dallas Cowboys defense right now, the cake's it's not finished cooking. You've got decent defensive linemen, although you need another guy. You need Mozzie Smith to step up and be a run stopper. You got edge rushers galore. You got guys that can get after the quarterback, which is hard to do. You've got secondary players, especially if you get Diggs back healthy next year with Deron Bland, and if you keep Stephon Gallimore. You've got great players in the secondary. You've got decent safeties. The thing that's missing from this defense, and has been the flaw that they haven't really addressed with premier money or draft picks, is linebacker. Now, technically you did with Micah Parsons, but you turned him into an edge rusher, thus leaving the hole at linebacker. Now, here's the thing. Let's go back to the Legion of Boom. That defense is built the same way. Big cornerbacks and safeties, guys that have length, guys that can cover and play downhill, that can be aggressive. We have that in the secondary. Defensive line. There weren't major standouts. I mean, you had Cliff Averill was one of your best ones. Marty B. Michael Bennett, was, best defensive lineman. I think Cliff Averill had like 9 sacks on, the Super Bowl year. But what's missing is you had linebackers in the middle of the field that could play downhill. And KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner. See, you got to have linebackers that can bring the load, that can work through traffic. Guys like Demario Davis. And the funny thing is oh God. Funny thing is, you had the opportunity to get one of those guys who is still, everybody, oh, he's worse. Still led the NFL in tackles in Bobby Wagner. See, here's the fundamental flaw. And it's not Dan Quinn's fault. We have had a problem at linebacker since Jalen Smith. And we knew Jalen Smith was paid too much. And with the dropped foot, he was hanging on to guys for dear life. He couldn't play downhill. Could not play downhill. If he had to cover somebody and plant the foot and turn, he couldn't do that. Leighton Vander Esch has been a thumper at times, but whenever he's gotten injured, when he's come back, he hasn't been the same. It's taken him a while to trust his neck again, and unfortunately, I think he's done. The Cowboys always believe in guys that are injured. I don't understand this whole thing. I don't understand this at all about them. They go through, they sign guys to massive contracts while they're injured. While they're injured. They draft guys that they know they need that are injured in college. Now, no disrespect to Damone Clark. Damone Clark has actually done really well. But again, this is a guy who had to have his back fused before he got here. We were lucky that he actually could play some of his rookie year. But you don't look at this and say, a late round drafted linebacker with a fused back, that the heart and soul of your defense, trust me, is your linebackers. They are everything. They set the tone. They're the guys that are making the stops, not the defensive line. You got a big man in Hankins who can hold the middle of the field, which is great. He can occupy space and keep the guard from going to the second level. But if you don't have a linebacker who can shed blocks and can drop and bring a load, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And we've known this. Instead of us saying, let's pay a little bit more money for a Bobby Wagner, a guy who is a thumper and who can play in the middle of the field and get downhill, we don't. We say, let's get Anthony Barr. He's long in the tooth. He's been a respectable guy. He'll be a veteran minimum. Oh, and he's coming back from an ACL injury. And we sign him in training camp. Sorry. This is the NFL. And when we're talking about playoffs, we're talking about the elite talent. We're talking about when there is no margin for error and you're playing the best of the best. You can't have a journeyman, old, injured player playing linebacker. Just can't. And the sad thing is you had a Bobby Wagner who wanted to be here with Dan Quinn, his coach. And he would have been a bargain. It might have cost you $7 million a year, but if you had had Bobby Wagner in there to help stop the run, and we were still playing, how much is that worth? And this all goes back to the fundamental problem. Instead of getting good players that aren't injured, that cost a little bit more, we go the route of being cheap and figure we've got some big names on the team. We'll go ahead and just get these other guys to be fill-ins, which is why we have 16 expiring contracts. 16, and most of them you look at and say, they didn't really do that much to help us. In the end, the Joneses are so busy trying to save some money here and there that the money that they're spending is not actually saving them any money. when you bring in a guy like Clinton Ha Dix, and he can't make it out of training camp, when you bring in what's his name, Brent, defensive tackle, and you pay him $2 or $3 million, and it's kind of like, you go through and you bring in the Kona Elis and these guys that are journeyman guys that aren't really that good of a player. It's not saving you money. You're paying for these guys each year, a couple $1 million here, year after year after year. You've been better off taking that money, pooling it, and getting a guy who can play. You need a studded linebacker. If hands or butts. And it's the same thing with running back. It all goes back to the same thing. Unfortunately, when you get to the end or you're playing great teams that have rosters that are better than you, it's hard to win. It just is. And the Cowboys, they do a lot of things right, but they damn sure don't do free agency right. And that's the problem.